All right. Hello and welcome, everyone. We're so glad that you could be joining us today. My name is Stephanie, and I will be your co-host for today's webinar. Now, this webinar is one of several webinars that are a part of our larger BrainHQ Academy series. The topic for today's webinar is Doing Good, Feeling Grateful, How Altruism and Gratitude Shape the Brain. Let's go over the agenda for today. So after this introduction, we are going to kick off the webinar today with a poll to get you all engaged. Once we launch the poll, you should see a new window pop up on your screen where you can submit your answers. There are going to be questions that are multiple choice answers, and then some are going to be single choice answers. Following that, we are going to view a presentation given by Dr. Mouna Attarha. Now, Mouna is returning to the webinar series with us today. In case you missed her the last time she was joining us for a webinar, here's a little ditty about her. Dr. Attarha earned her PhD in cognitive science, and she's been a senior scientist at Posit Science since 2016. She leads NIH-funded clinical trials investigating the neurochemical changes that occur by training on BrainHQ, and she also manages several trials looking at how BrainHQ exercises can improve cognitive performance in healthy adults, those with mild cognitive impairment, and even early dementia. Now, following that, Dr. Attarha is going to be joined by our very own Dr. Michael Merzenich, who is also a returning guest to the webinar series today. So Dr. Merzenich, for those of you that don't know, is the co-founder of Posit Science and the brain behind BrainHQ. For nearly 5 decades, he's been a leading pioneer in brain plasticity research and has published more than 150 articles in leading peer-reviewed journals. Now, following that, we are going to open the floor to a live Q&A. So if at any point throughout the entire presentation today you'd like to ask a question, you can click the Q&A button on the Zoom control panel and a new window should pop up. You can type in your questions there, and then we will do our best to answer as many of those questions as we can when we get to the Q&A section at the end. Now, there are a lot more of you in the audience than there are of us, so unfortunately, we aren't going to be able to answer every question today. Now, the last thing that I wanted to note is that today's webinar is being recorded and it will get posted to our YouTube channel in the coming days. So if you'd like to be notified when that video goes live, you can go to youtube.com/BrainHQ to subscribe there in order to receive a notification. Now, everyone who's registered for this webinar is also going to receive an email sometime next week with any follow-up resources that we may mention, including a link to the replay. All right, so let's go ahead and make our way into our first poll here. So let me go ahead and get that launched for you folks. All right, so you should see 2 questions have popped up on screen now. The first is a multiple choice question. So which acts of kindness have you done recently? Have you held the door open for a stranger, given directions to a stranger, maybe donated clothes or goods to a charity, maybe donated time or volunteered some of your time to an organization? Have you maybe seen somebody in line behind you with only 1 or 2 items at the grocery store and you let them cut ahead of you? Maybe you have gone so far as to help somebody move recently. The second question is sort of a sliding scale. The statement is, although I don't have everything I want, I'm thankful for what I have. So you can vote for strongly agree, or sorry, strongly disagree, disagree, somewhat disagree, all the way up through strongly agree. All right, and it looks like we have quite a few answers coming in already, which is fantastic to see. It's looking like for that first question, a lot of people have recently donated money to charity, which makes sense. It's the time of year where we are all considering making those donations if possible, for sure. I don't know, Mouna and Mike, do you maybe want to hop on and talk about acts of kindness that you've done recently?
Sure. Yeah, I've really enjoyed donating time to volunteer work in the past. I've liked reading and crafting with children who are in elementary school. I've liked planting trees in neighborhoods and parks. I've gone to Romania to volunteer at an orphanage. And I think all those opportunities have allowed me to spend time with kids who I love and also to be outside. Mike, how about you? I think you're on mute.
Nope, still muted, Mike. Sorry. Here, let me,
Unmute.
there we go.
Am I now?
Yep, you're good.
That's good. Well, yesterday I went to San Quentin Prison, where they have a wonderful program to help people that are in prison, and it's a good time to go there because they need cheering up. And the program is all about educating and helping them. And so I enjoy that kind of activity because I like to help people that struggle, and there are people that are struggling there, and it's actually a pretty good audience to talk to. But Diane and I, my wife and Diane and I, contribute to the classic Christmas charities, to the people that provide food to people for a special holiday dinner, for the Toys for Tots kind of thing, where you're sure every kid gets a toy or has a Santa Claus show up. Those kind of things we always contribute to. And this year, of course, that's right on target now.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that for me, the things that I do most often, probably on a daily basis, whenever I'm out and about, is holding doors open for strangers. That I don't know if I necessarily reflect on that as an act of kindness for me personally. It's more just like what my mother taught me to do when I was a child. But other than that, donating money to charity, I have a couple of reoccurring donations that go through every month to various organizations. And yeah, I'm also, funny enough, in the process of helping a friend move. So I'm in that 8% of people that look like they are also in the same boat and helping a friend move right now. All right, so it looks like we've got the vast majority of people who have voted already. So let's go ahead and end the poll and show the results here. So you can see that there are quite a few generous people here in our audience today. So a lot of people donate money to charity, donate goods or clothes to charity, hold the door open for strangers, also donating their time and volunteering with organizations, which is fantastic. And it looks like the vast majority of you somewhat agree or strongly agree that even though you don't have everything you want, you're thankful for what you have. So it's great to be reflective of that. So there's the results there that you all can see. All right, and let me go ahead and continue on here. So now that we have that little activity, we've got you thinking about being generous and being grateful and altruism in general. Let's go ahead and Mouna, take it away whenever you're ready.
Great. Thanks, Stephanie. So thanks everybody for coming. I'm very happy that y'all have joined us today to talk about how altruism and gratitude change the brain for the better. So a fancy name for helping others is prosocial behavior, which is any behavior that's intended to benefit another person. So examples might include donating time or money to charitable causes, helping a friend move heavy furniture, as Stephanie mentioned, running errands for someone who is ill, and encouraging someone who feels like giving up. And in each of these cases, we offer our time, effort, and resources to ease someone else's burden and to improve their well-being. We share, we help, we take care of those who are around us. And the wide range of social actions we take to help others fall into 6 very basic categories. The most striking is altruism, where the person is motivated by the concern for others instead of by personal benefit. They voluntarily take on a cost to helping another person, so helping comes at their own expense. Compliance is also a form of prosocial behavior. So compliant behavior involves helping others when they ask for help. Compared to spontaneous helping, compliant helping and cooperative behaviors are more common among young children, but not exclusively so. People who engage in emotional prosocial behavior tend to help others in emotionally charged situations, such as, for example, in the breakdown of a relationship. And these people do tend to have very high sympathy responses with high levels of empathy and moral cognition. Dire behavior is helping in a crisis or emergency. So these folks often help others who are in immediate need, such as people who are in a car crash or in a burning house. Public behavior refers to performing helpful acts in front of others. So people who help others publicly enjoy being watched as they help, which is, of course, perfectly fine. Helping is helping as far as I'm concerned. And then anonymous behavior involves helping others without being recognized, such as making a large monetary donation anonymously to a charity. These people don't want the recognition, and those who receive their help don't know who has helped them. Now, the single biggest predictor of prosocial behavior is the ability to empathize with the feelings and viewpoints of other people. And I'm sure no one here falls into any single category, but there's probably a category you fall into more often than others. So let's take another poll here to see which is the most popular form of prosocial behavior for this audience.
So it looks like we already have people jumping into the poll. A lot of people are voting that they engage in altruistic prosocial behavior, which is great to see. I mean, they're all great to see, but a lot of people are jumping in and saying altruistic specifically.
Yeah. Mike, I know from knowing you all these years that you are extraordinarily altruistic. What other prosocial categories do you regularly find yourself falling under? Mute. Let's unmute.
If someone indicates that they're under stress, I'm on call for that at any time. And I'm also on call for I don't hesitate to, one of the things that drives me crazy, Mouna, and probably maybe some of the people in this audience will agree, when someone obviously needs help. For example, when I'm in my city and I see someone that's on the street, homeless and struggling, I talk to them. I'm one of those people that talks to homeless people, and I give them things. I'll give them I try to figure out how to give them some warm moment. And maybe they can go inside and get something warm to eat. I'm all for that. My instinct is that we are meant to be, so we are social creatures by design, and we're meant to be mutually supportive. We're actually constructed for that. Our native human state, that's what we did. We took care of other people in our tribe. We were sharers. We did things together. We helped one another. And I think this is what our brains are designed to do. And so I think so all of these things comply. You don't have to get credit for it. You can do things anonymously. They're wonderful. But certainly when somebody expresses a need, somebody really needs help, step up. If you can, step up.
All right. So the poll's been up for a little over 2 minutes. It looks like we have most people who have submitted their answers. So let's go ahead and share the results here. So we can see a whopping 63% of our audience today find that they engage in altruistic prosocial acts most often. After that, it looks like compliant and emotional prosocial acts are and anonymous as well are all just about tied at 11 and 12%. Dire in public, not quite so much, but there could be good reasons for that. All right. So wonderful information. Thank you all for engaging with that poll. Let me go ahead and stop sharing, and Mouna, you can continue.
Perfect. Next slide, please. All right, so when does the spirit of giving begin? Altruism actually develops very, very early in life. It can be seen even in infancy. So in the video I'm about to show you next, babies who are nearly 1 demonstrated altruistic helping, which is when you give something away that is desirable, even when it comes at a cost to you. So the children in this video were hungry, and they were split into 2 groups. Those in the experiment group or the experimental group saw someone holding a really yummy piece of fruit, such as a banana, grape, blueberry, or strawberry, and then the person dropped it by accident and expressed interest in having it back by trying to reach for it. In the control group, however, the person dropped the fruit and showed no interest in getting it back. And the question here was, would the hungry infants act beyond self-interest? Would they give food that they wanted back to someone else spontaneously without encouragement, verbal instruction, or reinforcement? So let's take a look and see what happens.
It's a strawberry. See the strawberry? Oh.
So here he's showing interest in getting it back. And this hungry child says, uh-oh, and gives it back to him. So the answer is yes, a hungry infant would act beyond their own self-interest. A large proportion of the children in the experimental group spontaneously picked up the fruit, but then they gave it away to the adult who wanted it, compared to only a small number of children in the control group. So we see this kind of behavior in adults as well. Human adults are often very responsive to people who are hungry, whether through donating food to banks or fundraisers, by grabbing groceries for someone, or handing over their lunch. Next slide, please. And prosocial behavior increases in complexity across the lifespan. So at birth, babies are, of course, very self-centered, and understandably so. They need to survive. They can't do a whole lot on their own. But as babies develop, this self-centeredness is replaced by prosocial behavior, and babies develop the ability to distinguish themselves from others and to be able to empathize with them. So by 6 months, prosocial tendencies in babies begin to emerge. For example, they may cry when they hear other babies cry. And then as children develop a sense of, person permanence, perspective taking, and personal identity, they begin to comfort peers and adults who appear upset. Children as young as 2 can actually display empathetic concern for others. And then as children reach age 3, they show interest in learning social rules and monitoring compliance with them. So as I'm sure anyone here who has interacted with children know, they actively enforce rules during games, even when they're spectators rather than players. They also care about equal distribution of resources, and they get upset when things are not even. But then as they reach the age of 4, they become more sophisticated in taking multiple factors into consideration when deciding how to partition resources, such as, effort, food, and toys. And they can begin to accept partitioning those resources unequally based on the social situation. And then during early and middle childhood, children begin to associate regularly with peers and less frequently with parents, and their prosocial behaviors can continue to increase in complexity in these new social contexts. So as children begin to understand the emotions of their friends and peers and the expectations of their schools and teachers, they begin to engage in prosocial lying, for example, to protect another person's feelings. Their cognitive skills have also matured sufficiently to allow them to appreciate that harm is sometimes necessary to achieve a greater good. So, for example, pulling someone off an unsafe play structure to prevent them from injury. And then prosocial behavior tends to decline in early adolescence, partly in relation to hormonal and other physiological events during that time, but then it recovers, and civic engagement and volunteering emerge as adolescents become more socially independent. They may participate in church groups, they may play sports, get involved in school clubs, and that helps them learn that how we behave can make a difference in the lives of others. And then as adults, we often have access to more material resources, knowledge, independence, and particularly with retired adults, more time than in other stages of our lives. And adults become moral examples to younger generations. They socialize prosocial behavior in children through expressing moral expectations of how they should act and sacrifice, and through facilitating children's cooperation, both within the family and in the community. And then that essentially closes the loop on prosocial development across the lifespan. Next, please. Now, what does altruism look like in the brain? So neurobiologists have found that when a person behaves altruistically, the reward and pleasure centers of their brain become more active. In one experiment here, participants performed a giving activity while they were actually inside an fMRI scanner. And they watched the computer transfer money either to their own bank account or to the account of a local food bank. And sometimes they could choose whether to give or receive, but other times those transfers were made outside of their control. And the researchers here wanted to compare what happened in the brain when the person received money into their own bank account, as opposed to seeing that money given to the charity instead. And what they found is that a region of the frontal lobe of the brain called the ventromedial prefrontal cortex is key to supporting altruism. There are, of course, many other critical structures, such as the nucleus accumbens, the anterior cingulate, the temporoparietal junction, but we'll keep things simple here. And what the researchers saw were differences in just how active the ventromedial prefrontal cortex was across individuals. So they calculated what they termed a pure altruism response in the brain by comparing how active the reward regions in the brain were during the charity gain versus the self gain. And probably not surprisingly so, those who reported being more altruistic had a higher pure altruism score on the fMRI. They had a stronger response in those reward regions of the brain where they saw the charity gaining money. It felt good for them to see the food bank do well. Next slide, please. And not only are certain areas of the brain more responsive in an altruist, but certain structures may also be larger. So the amygdala, which is part of the brain involved in emotion processing, empathy, and memory, was 8% larger in people who are known as extraordinary altruists. So for example, these are people who will donate one of their kidneys to a stranger. And these brains looked like the brain of an extraordinary altruist looked like the inverse of the brain of someone with psychopathy. People with psychopathy had smaller amygdalas than average, along with a reduction in the neural responses corresponding to empathy for the distress of others. So this finding isn't isolated to just the amygdala. Altruists also have greater gray matter volume in the brain, which contains the brain's neuronal cell bodies. Altruism also affects the machinery of the brain controlling the release of neurotransmitters and hormones. It's affecting the brain's fundamental operations, which has a series of generalized effects. So for example, altruistic brains produce more oxytocin, which plays an important role in social behavior. Dopamine, a neurotransmitter recruited in functions such as reward and motivation, and serotonin, which plays a role in moral judgment and the control of emotions. So there's quite a few brain health benefits to live life as an altruistic human being. All right, so in recent years, researchers have begun to realize that the external practice of altruism is closely linked with the internal experience of gratitude. So being thankful about things in your own life increases the concern you have for the well-being of others. And gratitude is a human way of acknowledging and appreciating the good things in our lives. It isn't just an action such as saying thank you, but also the positive emotion that accompanies that appreciation. So gratitude in any form can really lighten our minds and makes us feel happier. Next, please. So what's going on in the brain when we experience gratitude? It's all very similar to the altruistic brain. So fMRI studies here show that several areas of the brain are activated more strongly when we experience and express gratitude. One of these parts is the medial prefrontal cortex, which is an area associated with the management of negative emotions. And those who express gratitude also have more gray matter volume in the brain. And the changes in neurotransmitters and hormones combined with the neural pathways that are more strongly activated, they all really work together to help us to cognitively restructure potentially harmful thoughts to better manage our circumstances and regulate stress. So for example, the brain is producing more serotonin, which contributes to feelings of well-being, stabilizes our mood, helps us feel more relaxed, and dopamine, which plays a vital role in pleasure, reward, motivation, and attention. Next, please. Now, the benefits of altruism and gratitude are widespread, and they reach far beyond improving the organic health status of the brain. And these benefits can be split into 5 general categories. So practicing altruism and gratitude is known to impact our emotions and our emotional health. Evidence has shown that regular practice can actually make us happier. So for example, simply journaling for 5 minutes a day about what we're grateful for can enhance our long-term happiness by over 10%. And it can lead up to a 35% reduction in depressive symptoms. Gratitude also has a strong positive impact on psychological well-being, life satisfaction, and self-esteem. It reduces envy and makes us more resilient against stress. So paying attention to what is good in your life instead of what is bad will help you feel more positively overall. And we also know that altruism and gratitude makes us more emotionally balanced and happier and more positive. So then it makes sense that all of these positive effects result in social benefits as well, right? After all, happy people are fun to be around. So regarding social benefits, regularly practicing altruism and gratitude can help you access a wider social network, more social support, more friends, better communication, more empathy, and better relationships on average. And this is likely because of the effect that being altruistic and grateful has on how trustworthy, social, and appreciative we seem to others. And then regular altruism and gratitude can even affect your personality. It not only helps others feel more positively, it also makes us think more positively. So regular altruism and gratitude has been shown to increase optimism by up to 15%. It can also reduce materialism because people who give and appreciate what they already have are less likely to fixate on obtaining more. Altruism and gratitude impart many benefits in the workplace as well for both employers and employees. So in the workplace, it enhances your managerial skills. It can help you make better decisions and experience less pressure from short-term gratification. It can help you find meaning and purpose in your work so that you feel more fulfilled throughout your career. It can help employees feel embedded in their organization and help them feel more welcomed and valued. And it can have a significant impact on staff mental health, stress, as well as turnover. And then there's ample evidence that practicing altruism and gratitude can improve your physical health. So for example, it's been shown to reduce your blood pressure, improve your cardiac function. It can improve sleep quality and sleep-wake cycles. It can strengthen your immune system, reduce body pains and aches, and it can keep you fit. And since those who are happier are more willing to exercise. Now, on the flip side, a lack of altruism and gratitude has been associated with behavioral disorders, with difficulties in school, with peer rejection, and can also has been shown to lead to an increased risk for depression. Next slide, please. Now, we know that there's a neurological basis for the close relationship between altruism and gratitude. One study, for example, looked at brain regions and connections that support both and how changes in one can lead to changes in the other. And the researchers wanted to know if whether practicing gratitude can make people more generous and altruistic. So here they randomly assigned participants to one of two groups. For 3 weeks, one of those groups had to write in their journals about gratitude, keeping track of all the things that they were grateful for. In the other group, for the exact same period of time, the other group wrote about engaging topics from their lives that weren't specific to gratitude. And the question here was, could changing the amount of gratitude people felt alter how the ventromedial prefrontal cortex responds to giving and receiving? And the gratitude journaling worked. So participants were put back in that fMRI scanner where they saw money transferred either to their own bank account or to a charity. And the group that practiced gratitude by journaling showed a change in how their brains responded to giving. They increased that pure altruism score in the reward regions of their brain, and their responses to charity gain actually increased more than their brain response to self-gain. Now, the ventromedial prefrontal cortex is connected to many other brain systems that help you experience reward. And these high-level systems in your frontal lobe, they're constantly assessing the value of your decisions and evaluating the cost and benefits of giving. And practicing gratitude shifted the value of altruism in the ventromedial prefrontal cortex. It's essentially altered the exchange rate for what's rewarding for your brain. Next slide, please. And both biology and socialization play a really important role in prosocial development. So for example, parental responsiveness enables a child to learn how to respond to distress of others with empathy. Parents who are warm and nurturing and responsive, who show unconditional love and acceptance, tend to have children who act prosocially. But no matter where you are, you can still nurture your brain's ability to feel altruistic and grateful by practicing it in your daily life. So we know that neurons that fire together wire together. So the more we do something, the easier it becomes. The more we intentionally activate these circuits in our brain, the less effort it takes to stimulate the next time, the stronger they become in the future. And there are many ways to train altruism, gratitude, but here are just a few ideas to consider. First, you can take steps to making altruism and gratitude a habit. Start journaling what you're grateful for, and remember maybe 3 things that you're especially grateful for from that day. So now you're focusing on the good things that happened to you. You can also start thinking about how you can regularly perform random acts of kindness for others and maybe set a goal of 1 act per day or 1 per week. Look around you for people who may need help. You can fix a meal for someone in need, help a friend with a chore, donate money donate money to a charity or donate to a blood drive, for example. You can spend time volunteering for a local organization. Then once you're done, make sure to reflect by thinking about the acts you've performed, how they might have helped someone, and how you might repeat them going forward. You could also take a gratitude walk and observe the things you see around you as you walk around. So you can be aware of nature, the colors of the trees, the sounds the birds make, the smell of the plants. Notice how your feet feel as you step on the ground. You could write a gratitude letter, and in this letter, you can describe what a person in your life has done that makes you feel grateful and how they've impacted your life. Then you can describe what you're doing in life now and how frequently you remember their act of kindness and generosity. You could do a gratitude meditation where you visualize all the things in your life that you're grateful for. I like to simplify this sometimes and show gratitude for things that are often taken for granted. You know, the ability to breathe, hands to touch, eyes to see, legs to walk on and run. There are, of course, numerous health benefits to meditating. You can also practice your empathy by trying to put yourself in another person's shoes. It may mean feeling the same emotion that another person is feeling. So if the person is sad, then you may feel sad as well. It may mean seeing things from another person's perspective. So understanding why and how they're interpreting and responding to the events taking place. Really being able to take on others' viewpoints is an important milestone in cognitive development, and those who are encouraged to consider another person's perspective develop cognitive empathy, leading to greater prosocial behavior. And then you can look for inspiration. So looking to inspirational people who engage in altruistic acts, because seeing others work to actively improve the lives of others and their communities can inspire you to act similarly in your own life. And then finally, if you're feeling less generous than you have historically in the past, then one culprit may be from sleep deprivation. Studies have shown that losing sleep, even if it's just 1 hour less per night, resulted in fewer donations, less willingness to help others, and a significant impairment in brain networks that help us understand the needs of others. So in fact, scientists have found that charitable giving in the week after the beginning of daylight saving times when residents are in most states they spring forward and they lose about 1 hour of the day. Charitable giving dropped by 10%, which is a decrease not seen in states that do not change their clock or when states return to the standard time in the fall. So getting poor sleep not only affects how you feel, but it also tampers with your ability to empathize and give to others around you. All right, next slide, please. There we go. So should we move on to the discussion portion of this webinar, Stephanie?
That sounds good. Mike, it looks like your video is on. Let's go ahead and get you unmuted, and then you guys can take it away.
There we go. So Mike, with the holidays now here, many folks are in the giving spirit. As you know, our company gives every employee $1,000 each year to donate to a charity of our choice. In the past, I've donated to Feeding America's Hungry Children and No Kid Hungry, because I just felt like a child's most basic needs must be met before they have the energy to explore and play and learn. What organization did you choose and why? And how are you giving this holiday season and throughout the year?
Well, I did a funny thing. I gave my $1,000 to this group in San Quentin Prison called Tamaulipas College, because I visited there and I saw that these guys needed an uplift, and I asked that it specifically be used to contribute to that across the holiday season. And I know this is a sort of a bizarre thing, but it's a cause of mine, because I think that most people that find themselves in trouble and have to be banished from the rest of us, we can be vengeful and think of the horrible things they might have done, but I think of them as human beings that have had a very difficult course in life and are struggling and have a potential for recovery and restoration and rescue, and I'm all for that. But in general, we're kid-directed. in our whole holiday season, it's kid directed. It's trying to make sure that every kid in sight we know of or we know around us, is going to have a happy holiday. It's going to have Santa Claus arrive or the equivalent when they're older. And it's going to have a good time of it in this time of year, because it's a time for elevation of spirits and coming into each time of year. And it's a time of magic and wonder for a child. And you want every kid to be as happy and full of food and in every other way, So again, we contribute to charities that contribute to that or help assure that. Of course, it's piecemeal. You always wish you could do more. And then we have an elaborate family holiday where we're trying to make the most of it from the point of view of the positive well-being of the people in our family in an extended way, everybody in sight. And by family, I don't mean just people that are related to us. I mean people that we know in some extended way that we love.
And you had mentioned, some of these people have had a really hard time in life. And we know that the opposite of prosocial behavior is antisocial behavior, which is behavior that's intended to hinder or harm others. What are the circumstances in life that you're finding make people less willing to give later on and make maybe even more likely to hurt?
Well, it's well known how this grows in the brain, generally as a function of where you've been in life and the struggles that you've had in life. And the way you feel that you're not a part of the mainstream, you're not a part of the human family, or that you feel left out of it, or you feel disrespected. And, it's just so sad that there are so many people in our society that live with us that are in this situation, largely from their childhood or from their young life, where the disadvantages of their life were so destructive for them growing empathy and growing a strong feeling of connection. If we think about what humans were designed to do back in the sort of native cultures of the world, not just America, but everywhere across the world, they were all sharing cultures. There were cultures in which there was in the tribe or the group that you lived in, it was constructed so that you took care of one another much more than now. Now we're so disconnected. We're in our houses and our boxes, and we can be so disconnected from the people around us. And there can be tragedy that occurs in some of those boxes that goes, you could say, unreported and untreated. And as you know, at Posit Science, this is a big issue with us. We're trying to get to as many people that are struggling in the world as we can and help them. And this is one thing that we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to bring people back to the mainstream with the rest of us.
And you mentioned how the brain can change. I mentioned a little bit about that in the presentation as well. Right. Around how much training do you think it would take to decondition those networks?
Well, we do two things. We try in Posit Science, in BrainHQ, we're actually trying to strengthen the resources that grow the neuromodulatory powers, you could say, and also more strongly reconnect the frontal lobes in activation, and then train social behaviors in ways that could make you more socially competent. So then your social cognition, you make more accurate judgments about what's happening to that person in front of you that you're looking at, or you're making a judgment about what's happening to them, right? We're trying to reconnect it. So that's one thing. But people have conducted a variety of other studies that you haven't mentioned. I'll take a positive one. Get a pet, because a pet's something you have to take care of. You have to take care of your cat. You have to take care of your dog. You're extending yourself to something else that you need to take care of. But that's fundamentally an altruistic operation with an animal, not a human. That's good. That's a good thing to do. I love my dog. And I learned from my connection with my dog, it contributes to my connection to other human beings. And in fact, I love walking with my dog and watching that connection occur, because they respond more positively to my dog generally than they respond to me. One of the things that I do every day, just as an aside, is I take a morning walk with my dog, but maybe a mile and a half, 2 miles, and I try to greet everyone I see. Now, about 2/3 of people don't necessarily want to be greeted or don't respond very much, but enough people I know I brighten their day to make it very worthwhile to do that. And the more you can spread, you can control the number of times you can deliver good news to someone else or to help someone else. You can't control the number of times people are nice to you. But because you can control, you are rewarded just as much by giving as you are by receiving, as you pointed out in your wonderful presentation of this. Your brain is exercised by your giving. And it's a very healthy form of exercise for you. And what a benefit it is for you to do that.
And we spoke about how important it is to count our blessings. As you know, I have a 4-year-old toddler, and every night before bed, we do something called grateful things, where we list all the things about our life that we're thankful for. It often includes small things like for example, I'm grateful for my books that teach me new things and take me to faraway places. And it goes on to larger things, like I'm grateful that we can have the time to take a family vacation to, let's say, Lake Tahoe, for example. What are the ways that you practice gratitude in your daily life, and what are some of the things you're grateful for?
Yeah, well, there's three fundamental things. The first thing, I try to be positive with the people that are close to me that I'm with, and let them understand how grateful I am that I have the privilege to be hanging out with them. So that's an important thing. I try to express that feeling. The second thing, every morning I have a moment in which I basically reflect on the fact that my glass is more than half full. And I believe that it's critical that you think about yourself, no matter what your struggles, overall, to be on the positive side of that glass. Because then you're in a world of abundance. Then you can share. The lesson that there is a relationship between being how your perspective about these things and your ability to give to others or contribute in an altruistic way to others. I mean, gratitude and altruism are critically linked. And if you have the basic understanding that overall, just being here and living this life and taking advantage of the things out there that are in there that can inspirit us. So I take that moment to remember that. And then the third thing I do every day, and you mentioned a version of this, I walk with my dog, and every day when I walk with my dog, I make it a point to find 2 or 3 things that are especially beautiful or especially interesting or especially surprising in the world I live. I live in a beautiful city, in a wonderful neighborhood where this was sort of outdoor and beautiful city environments. And every day I can take a walk. I take a walk in a different place. And commonly I take a picture with my cell phone, when I see something really interesting, take the picture. And then I come home later and I write a little poem. It might be a haiku or it might be just a line or two. But I'm thinking about what that means in a life, to have things like that in a life. And so again, I'm trying to remind myself, but I'm doing it because I love my life. I love life. And I love the fact that it's full of beautiful things. And I love the fact it's full of interesting things if you just look for them. And so that's another way for me to remind myself that I have so much to be thankful for.
Yeah, you're focusing on all the positive things, so you don't even have time to ruminate or think about any negative things.
I actually don't think very much about the negative things, even though we all have things in our life that are concerning, and some of us are just have loads of them, And I know sometimes it can be a struggle to keep on that positive side of the equation. But still, overall, we're just so fortunate to be here. And we're so fortunate to be in this wonderful place that we are.
Now, do you feel like you felt that way your whole life, or is that a skill you've developed?
I think life has ups and downs. There are times when you're so busy or distracted, or when I was younger, I was more callous. I think I was trained I grew up in a very generous, sort of socially active family. Always the center, my family home was always the center of a social community. People came to our house. The door was always open. You were always welcome for dinner. It was there was sort of an open door policy, not just with the food, but with the kindness. And so I learned that instinctively. But then, later in life, you get so busy, so distracted, so full of yourself, so egocentric, sometimes. And so I sort of gradually, then you have family, you have children, and they remind you about you're really into if you're not an altruistic parent, then you're probably not being a really good parent, because you have a lot of, because you have a lot of service to do in interacting with those kids. And so that sort of reawakens your humanity. And I think I've gradually grown to be more deeply appreciative of life on the planet, and upon how, overall, how my glass is more than half full. And I think I might get it full to the brim anytime now.
Do you feel like there are any drawbacks or difficulties to altruism? So, for example, people may engage in altruistic acts that can put them in danger, or it may sometimes lead people to neglect their own health, social, financial needs in order to care for others. People who work in helping professions, for example, may find themselves emotionally overwhelmed by the constant demand to put their needs behind another person's. So what advice would you give to people in these situations to help them strike a balance?
Yeah, it can be almost kind of an addiction when you're just trying so hard to do good, and you're trying so hard to help, and you see such, often you can work in a place or be in a place where you see such need, so you have to sustain some level of balance, because the extent to which you're healthy, you can deliver help. So you always have to think of yourself as you, and you have to take time when you're in this situation to step back every so often and just catch up with yourself, and not let it be overwhelming to you. But I think that across greater society, the shortage is not, the problem is big time on the other side of the fence. It is all of these people that have forgotten how to be giving and helpful and altruistic and kind. I see a shortage of kindness. I see so many people that aren't thinking about the other person. I see so many people that can walk past that homeless people and not just not help them. I can see why a person might not do that, but really not give them a thought, not see them as another human being, and see so many other people as basically throwaway people, and not appreciating the fact that they're all part of our human family, and we're actually designed neurologically to support them. We're designed to help them and anticipate them helping us. When I gave my lecture in San Quentin prison, I said, look, it's not just about me providing something for you. It's about you providing something for me. It's about us living in a share and operating in a sharing community. And I believe that. I believe that we should all think of ourselves as equally engaged and equally important as human beings. And that's my own personal philosophy. And I just think it's what we are neurologically constructed to do. And we've invented these cultural things that degrade and frustrate it.
Completely agree. Stephanie, do we have any questions coming in?
Yeah, we do have quite a few questions that have come in. So actually, a question going back to the study that you had talked about in your presentation, Mouna. Did the amount of money transferred in that benevolent study have an impact on the results? Were there greater changes in people that saw that more money was donated, or was it roughly the same, or was that even taken into account in that study?
I think I'd have to go back to the method section. I think it was a range, but the ranges were similar between, they definitely equated the overall total with the self gain and the charity gain. But I'm not sure if they looked at differential effects between whether $50 was transferred versus $1.
Okay. All right. And then next question, we have Adeline, who has come in, and she wants to know a little bit more about how chronic pain can affect empathy, if there's any sort of causation for that. She says that she was a successful psychiatrist and therapist who worked for many years in sort of this care providing role. But because of chronic pain, she's sort of lost her ability over time to want to give that time. Can you all speak to that maybe a little bit?
Mike?
Oh, well, it's such a can be such an overwhelming source of distraction and ultimately contributing to the noisiness of the operations of the brain, which are slowly going to contribute to disconnecting these frontal cortical areas that are supporting these behaviors. And it's definitely going to contribute in a negative way to your ability to support these more complex social behaviors. And then you're also in a situation where there's a social attenuation in your life in general, because you're not able to operate with the same source of social levels of interaction and engagement that you are when this is not a ever-present problem that you have to live with, that you have to deal with. So all of these things are going to be negative in your life. I mean, it's a real struggle, but you have to understand that these prosocial behaviors are still reconstructible. They're still reinforceable. And you have to just give the effort. You have to sort out how you can get out there and engage again and try to reestablish a connection again with your fellow human beings on this level. And because you can re-strengthen it, you can regrow it. And BrainHQ related programs help in the respect that they absolutely support the fundamental neurological resources that you need in that re-engagement. So I'm sorry my answer is not more direct and more scientific than that, but we'll leave it at that for now. If you communicate with me, I'll provide a more scientific answer.
Sure. Adeline, if you want to send an email to support@brainhq.com, I'd be more than happy to forward that to Mike, and he can get back to you about that.
A really nerdy response to your wonderful question.
Yeah. All right. So thank you both so much for taking the time to join our webinar today. And thank you everybody in the audience today for joining. Let's go ahead and start the wrap up here. So today's webinar that you just saw is going to be posted on our YouTube channel sometime next week. Again, that's youtube.com/BrainHQ. We'll also be sending a follow-up email sometime next week with a link to that recording. Other than that, it looks like we have yet to announce what our next webinar is going to be next month, but it will be happening. It's going to be an office hours webinar. More on that in that email to come next week. Mike and Mouna, do you have any last final takeaways that you want to, or any last bits of wisdom that you want to impart upon our audience today?
I think that, oh, go ahead, Mike.
I just like to say, be kind. The world needs more kindness.
And I think I want to say that altruism and gratitude can be thought of as wellness strategies. They can be regularly integrated into our daily lives in much the same way as physical exercise, balanced nutrition, and brain training.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, with that, let's go ahead and wish you all a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you again so much for joining us for this webinar. And we hope that you have a very happy rest of your year, holiday season. Stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy, and think about what you can be thankful for into this coming season. All right. Bye now, folks.